Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging headfirst into a topic that has, well, captivated humanity for centuries. It's this enduring allure of the unseen, those whispers of hidden influence, and that persistent idea that powerful, shadowy groups might just be pulling the strings behind the scenes. What if the world isn't quite as it seems? What if maybe the official narrative is just a thin veil over something much more intricate, maybe unsettling?
That's a powerful opening, yeah. And it's a question that fuels, countless hours of thought, isn't it? And debate. We're really embarking on a deep dive today into secret societies and conspiracy culture.
Yeah.
And just to be clear, we're not just going to skim the surface like old legends from dusty books or, stuff you hear whispered online. No, we're going to look at their actual historical roots, explore their profound psychological impact on individuals, on societies, and crucially, connect them to their startling, sometimes really unsettling modern relevance. It helps us get why these stories still have such a hold on us.
That's right. So for this deep dive, our mission, if you will, is to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge. We've got a stack of historical accounts, psychological analyses, cultural observations. It's fascinating stuff. Think of it like your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on something that's, well, everywhere. History books, sure, but modern memes too. We're here to distill the essence, give you those aha moments without drowning you in information.
Exactly. Our goal is to uncover some surprising facts, dissect these complex ideas, and really help you, the listener, understand why. Why do these narratives stick around with such incredible power across so many different cultures? We'll explore what's, firmly rooted in historical fact, what's pretty much entirely myth, and crucially, why it all matters to you, how these stories, whether they're true or not, end up shaping our perceptions, our politics, even our trust in the world around us. So let's begin to unpack the shadows, shall we?
Let's do it. Okay, when we talk hidden influence, shadowy groups, there's one name that almost always leaps out, right? It's become synonymous with clandestine power. We really have to start at the beginning, I think. Back in the Age of Reason, with a group whose actual historical existence was, well, fleeting, but whose legend, immortal. The Illuminati.
Ah, the Bavarian Illuminati, yes. So much myth wrapped around such a relatively short historical reality, especially when we talk about enduring influence. This group was founded May 1st, 1776. The founder was Adam Weishaupt, a law professor, University of Ingolstadt in Bavaria. And you have to remember the context. This was a really turbulent time in Europe, the late Enlightenment. Old structures were being seriously questioned. Weishaupt himself, he was actually a former Jesuit living in a society heavily influenced by the Catholic Church. The church controlled education, public thought, a lot of things.
Right, okay. So given that context, what was their core mission? I mean, was it always about world domination, like the modern story suggests?
Yeah. Oh, far from it, especially at the start. They began as a rationalist secret society. They were really driven by Enlightenment ideals, reason, individual liberty, secularism. Their primary aim was actually pretty radical for 18th century Bavaria, to curb religious influence over public life, to promote free thought, critical thinking, moral education based on reason. They wanted to inject more logic, less dogma into society. They believed individuals could be perfected through education and enlightened self-governance. Weishaupt's pseudonym, by the way, was Brother Spartacus.
Spartacus.
Yeah.
Like the Roman slave revolt leader?
Exactly. It gives you a hint about their sort of revolutionary anti-establishment leanings against the big powers of their day, the church, the monarchy. And their early members were an interesting mix, quite intellectual. Poets, philosophers, some clergy who were disillusioned, even minor nobles. They had these elaborate initiation rituals too, different classes you progress through. The idea was to incrementally reveal their true ambitious aims for societal reform.
Huh. It sounds almost, well, surprisingly noble, almost academic. Rationalism, free thought, pushing back against entrenched power. But then, how does a group founded on these seemingly high-minded principles become the subject of such wild, often totally irrational conspiracy theories? Global control, shadowy puppeteers, even demonic pacts. It seems like a complete flip.
Okay, here's where it gets really fascinating and, yeah, tragically ironic. Their quick downfall, that's the key to their enduring myth. The Bavarian government got seriously nervous about them. Their secrecy, their perceived radicalism, remember, they aimed to reform society from within by influencing key people. So the government officially banned the group in 1785.
Banned them. Just like that.
Just like that. But this forced disbandment, paradoxically, it didn't kill the idea. It drove the group underground, or at least the idea of them underground. And more importantly, it fueled centuries of myth and speculation about its continued existence, its immense hidden influence. The very act of suppression basically gave them eternal life in the conspiracy world. Think about it. A secret group dedicated to radical change suddenly vanishes from public view right before the French Revolution explodes a few years later. It was just too tempting for people, especially anti-revolutionary writers, to connect those dots, to claim, the Illuminati survived. They orchestrated the whole thing. The secrecy, the forced disbandment, it created this perfect vacuum, this breeding ground for myths. It let the legend grow far, far bigger than historical reality ever was. They became this powerful, shapeless enemy you could project all your fears about unseen power onto.
It's like the less you actually know about something, the more you can imagine about it, and the more powerful it gets in your head, filling that information gap with these huge stories.
Okay, so from the short, fiery history of the Illuminati, let's shift gears. Let's talk about another group. Immense historical presence, even more pervasive symbols, instantly recognizable. The Freemasons. Right, the Freemasons. Very different origin story here. Much more gradual and actually publicly documented in many ways. They evolved directly out of medieval stonemason guilds. These were, practical craftspeople, the guys who actually built the cathedrals, the castles, the big public works. They had specialized knowledge, geometry, engineering, architecture, really important stuff. But as the era of grand cathedral building started to wind down, these operative guilds began admitting what they called speculative or honorary members.
Speculative, meaning?
Meaning not actual stonemasons, gentlemen, intellectuals, merchants, people who weren't in the trade but were interested in the moral and philosophical discussions that started popping up in the lodges.
So it literally transitioned from building with stone and mortar to building. What moral character, how did that happen? And what did esoteric symbolism really mean for them?
Pretty much, yeah. The formal shift really happened in London, 1717. That's when the first Grand Lodge was established. That marks the beginning of modern, speculative Freemasonry. They shifted their main focus to moral philosophy, esoteric symbolism, and mutual aid among members, helping each other out. And their symbolism isn't just for show, it's absolutely central to their teachings. They use the tools and concepts of stonemasonry, the square, the compass, the level as allegories.
Allegories for what?
For building moral character, for building a better society, metaphorically. Iconic symbols like the square and compass representing morality acting on the square, the all-seeing eye often symbolizing divine watchfulness or wisdom, though people read a lot into that one. And the letter G could be God, could be geometry, could be gnosis, meaning knowledge. These symbols are everywhere if you start looking.
Yeah, you do see them around.
Architecture, currency, look at the US dollar bill town planning sometimes. And crucially, they got absorbed into conspiracy lore, making them instantly recognizable, even if the original meaning gets twisted. Esoteric here just means teachings intended for an initiated group, communicated through symbols and rituals. A deeper, hidden meaning, sure, but not automatically sinister, just layered. Intended for those who go through the degrees, the learning process, which of course sparks curiosity and suspicion.
And the Freemasons weren't just some obscure club. They had and still have some seriously big names as members. People who really shaped history. We're talking George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, Mozart, Simon Bolivar, Winston Churchill, even Buzz Aldrin, right?
That's right, an impressive list.
So how does having such prominent figures involved fuel the idea, or at least the interest in the idea, of Masonic influence in big political and cultural movements? Does it give those theories credibility?
Well, yeah, it inevitably does, doesn't it? When you have founding fathers, revolutionary leaders, famous artists, astronauts, all part of the same fraternity, people are going to connect dots, or, imagine dots. They start thinking about the group's alleged agenda versus the individual's influence. Like George Washington, a dedicated Mason, laid the cornerstone of the U.S. Capitol building wearing Masonic gear. That's a powerful image.
Definitely.
Benjamin Franklin, another key Mason, was crucial in getting that alliance with France during the Revolution. And Masonic lodges were influential in France, too. So, does it suggest a powerful network? A hidden hand guiding events? To some, absolutely. Or were these just prominent citizens participating in what was, at the time, a very popular social and philosophical club? One that emphasized civic virtue, self-improvement, mutual support? Probably more the latter in most cases, but the sheer concentration of powerful people over centuries, it naturally makes you wonder about their collective impact, right? Did that shared private allegiance influence public actions? It's a fair question, even if the answers are complex.
It certainly adds layers to history, makes you think. Okay, let's go back even further now. To a group born from holy wars, incredibly powerful, then a really dramatic, violent end. The Knights Templar.
Ah, the Templars, founded way back in 1119 CE. Started small, just a handful of knights, sanctioned by the church, actually, their initial job. Protect Christian pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land during the Crusades. A noble, practical purpose, but boy, did they transform quickly.
And how? They didn't stay small protectors for long. They rapidly amassed huge wealth, huge influence, became this formidable financial and military force across medieval Europe. Their network spanned Europe, the Middle East. They owned vast amounts of land. They basically ran an early international banking system.
Absolutely. Issuing letters of credit, lending money even to kings and popes. You could argue they were one of the first multinational corporations, really, holding immense assets, wielding power comparable to kingdoms.
So powerful. But their downfall,
Yeah.
just as dramatic as their rise, right? A real cautionary tale about power and debt.
Oh, completely. 1307, King Philip IV of France. He owed the Templars a lot of money, and he definitely coveted their riches. So, he orchestrated their suppression. On Friday, October 13, 1307, and this is key, he issued secret orders. Arrest all Templars in France simultaneously. Accuse them of heresy, idolatry, all sorts of blasphemous stuff.
Friday the 13th, that's where that comes from.
That's widely believed to be a major origin, yes. The superstition linking bad luck to that date gets a huge boost from this event. Many Templars were arrested, tortured into giving false confessions. It led to executions, and eventually the Pope dissolved the order entirely in 1312. A shocking end.
The whole story, the rise and fall, it's incredibly powerful, isn't it? How does a real historical event like the Templar suppression manage to inspire centuries of treasure hunts, mythical quests, pop culture? People are still looking for Templar gold today.
It's just a perfect storm for myth-making, isn't it? A powerful, wealthy, seemingly untouchable group brought down suddenly by betrayal, and their vast riches supposedly just vanish overnight.
Yeah, where did it all go?
Exactly. That mystery fuels everything. The allure of hidden treasure, the Holy Grail, which historically wasn't really their thing, but legend linked it to them later. And these enduring rumors that some Templars survived, went underground, maybe became Freemasons or something else. It just taps into this deep human fascination, forgotten relics, secret knowledge, maybe poetic justice. It's a gripping historical mystery full of unanswered questions because the end was so sudden, so brutal. And seeing a powerful king dismantle such a huge transnational order, it shows how fragile even the biggest institutions can be when politics, money, and power line up against them.
Okay, from the Crusades and medieval kings, let's leap forward, right into the heart of modern history. An event that really truly cemented the era of contemporary conspiracy culture. The assassination of President John F. Kennedy. This wasn't just another historical puzzle. It lit a firestorm of suspicion that's still burning really brightly.
Yeah, the JFK assassination, November 22nd, 1963, in Dallas. It's arguably the defining event for modern conspiracy theories. No question. The official story, laid out in the 1964 Warren Commission report, concluded Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone. Fired 3 shots from the Texas School Book Depository. Simple enough on the surface.
But simple wasn't how people felt, was it? Those conclusions were met with huge skepticism, almost immediately. The questions started piling up, and they've persisted for decades. Like, why was Jack Ruby, this nightclub owner with supposed mob ties, able to just walk into police headquarters and shoot Oswald, silencing the only suspect before he could really talk? What about the reports, the rumors, that JFK was planning to dismantle the CIA, this powerful, secretive agency that had just had some major failures like the Bay of Pigs?
Right.
And why were so many government documents related to the assassination classified for decades, only scheduled for release much, much later? That alone screams cover-up to a lot of people. These aren't minor quibbles.
You're absolutely right. These are significant, troubling questions. And the official conclusion, combined with all these unanswered points, this perceived government secrecy, it created this profound, lasting distrust in official stories, especially Oswald's death. The lone assassin, silenced on live TV before he could be fully questioned, it just felt too convenient, way too neat. That event truly became a crucible for skepticism. It changed how a whole generation looked at authority, at government.
But why this specific event? Why did JFK's assassination become the catalyst, the touchstone for modern conspiracy thinking? It resonated so much deeper than other historical mysteries, other assassinations. What made it different? Why did it lodge itself so firmly in the public imagination?
It was a unique confluence of factors, I think. First, mass media was exploding. The event unfolded live on TV. The Zapruder film captured it graphically. People saw it, replayed it, endlessly. Millions experienced that shock simultaneously visually.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Second, Kennedy himself. Young, charismatic president symbolizing hope, a new era. His sudden, violent death left this huge psychological hole. And then the official investigation. It felt rushed to some, flawed. Combine that with the shock of losing such a leader, it created this massive information vacuum. And nature hates a vacuum, right? Especially in an information vacuum. It gets filled quickly with alternative explanations. The weirdness around Oswald's death just poured gasoline on that fire. It created this overwhelming sense that crucial information was being hidden, suppressed, which naturally breeds alternative theories. It was this iconic, traumatic moment in American history that just seemed too big, too world-changing for a simple lone gunman explanation. It demanded a bigger story, and countless books, films, and theories rushed in to provide one.
Okay, it's clear these historical events really laid the groundwork. They shaped the narratives, primed people for skepticism. But let's shift now to the human side. Why do we believe this stuff? What are the deep psychological, sociological drivers behind our susceptibility to conspiracy theories? The enduring allure of secret societies.
Right, this gets into some fascinating brain science, some really basic human needs. A key concept here is patternicity theory. Michael Shermer talks about this a lot. It suggests our brains are basically hardwired to seek patterns, even where none actually exist. Especially when things feel chaotic or random, our brains evolved to connect dots because, historically, spotting patterns was crucial for survival. Hear a rustle in the grass, better assume it's a predator and run, right? Better safe than sorry. Type I error versus type 2 error.
So when something huge and chaotic happens, an assassination, a pandemic, an economic crash, our brains instinctively search for a coherent explanation, a story that makes sense of the mess. Even if that story involves hidden plots and secret actors. It's like our old wiring misfiring in the modern world.
Exactly. Conspiracy theories and these narratives about secret societies, they offer seemingly simple, coherent, and often emotionally satisfying explanations for really complex, messy, frightening realities. They provide a sense of order in the chaos. They give us a narrative frame to understand events that might otherwise feel just random, overwhelming, totally beyond our control. Shermer calls it pareidolia in information, seeing meaningful patterns or connections in data that's actually just noise, just randomness. This deep-seated desire for control, for predictability, it makes us susceptible to grand narratives, even without solid evidence. It's often more comforting to believe anyone is in control, even if they're evil, than to face the possibility of sheer randomness or just systemic failure.
And it's not just about individual brains searching for patterns, right? There's a strong social element too, a sense of belonging that these theories can provide.
Oh, absolutely. Social identity theory, Henri Tajfel developed this, really helps explain that powerful dynamic. Conspiracy theories are fantastic at reinforcing in-group versus out-group dynamics. They give people a clear social identity.
So it's more than just believing the theory itself. It's about being part of a special group. The idea that if you know the truth, you're part of this elite, enlightened circle that has access to hidden knowledge.
Precisely. Believers often see themselves as awakened or, red-pilled. They feel they possess special hidden knowledge that the ignorant masses, the sheeple, are too blind or naive to grasp. This immediately sets them apart from mainstream society, which they see as asleep, manipulated, or just clueless. And that provides significant psychological comfort, a sense of superiority even. Powerful validation for your worldview. If you feel alienated or powerless, being part of the in-group that knows can be a really strong antidote. It creates this powerful bond based on shared truth and perceived intellectual advantage.
And this us versus them, this shared exclusive knowledge that can lead to real problems, can it? Like creating echo chambers where distrust just festers. How does this theory explain why contradictory evidence might actually make someone believe harder? That seems so counterintuitive.
It is counterintuitive and often deeply frustrating for outsiders. But within these echo chambers, the shared beliefs get constantly reinforced. Alternative views. Actively suppressed, mocked, dismissed. Any external information, especially from mainstream sources, experts, media, that contradicts the group's narrative. That's just dismissed as part of the deception. Fake news. Or worse, it's seen as further proof of how deep and insidious the conspiracy really is.
So trying to debunk it actually confirms it in their eyes.
Often, yes. Any evidence challenging the conspiracy gets reframed. Of course they would say that. They're trying to cover it up. It ironically strengthens the conviction. The more the establishment denies it, the more the believer feels they must be onto something important. It becomes the self-sealing belief system, a fortress against inconvenient facts, questioning the narrative inside the group. That can feel like betraying your community.
And this isn't exactly new. There's historical precedent for this kind of mass anxiety, this collective mindset. Richard Hofstadter famously wrote about the paranoid style in American politics.
Yes, Hofstadter's work back in 1964 was seminal. He identified this recurring thread in American political discourse. It wasn't just about believing in one specific conspiracy, but this pervasive feeling of an existential threat. He described it as this heated, exaggerated, suspicious, and conspiratorial fantasy, attributing dark, almost superhuman malice to shadowy opponents, always seeing these monolithic forces at work, secretly undermining everything. These forces are often imagined as having, perfect organization, almost unlimited reach. It's a whole worldview built on suspicion.
And then you get real events that seem to validate some of that paranoia. Things that aren't just theories, but proven facts, like Watergate uncovering massive government corruption and cover-ups, or MKUltra, the CIA's actual unethical mind control experiments on unwitting people. These weren't theories. They happened. They were documented conspiratorial planning by powerful institutions.
Exactly. And these legitimate instances of deception, of government malfeasance, they significantly ramped up public distrust. They blurred the lines between actual documented misconduct and purely speculative conspiracy theories. This is such a crucial distinction we have to keep making. Real government misconduct absolutely exists. Watergate, where the president's team orchestrated a break-in and cover-up. MKUltra, illegal human experiments. These absolutely validate a baseline skepticism about official narratives. They were, in effect, real conspiracies.
Right.
But the danger is how that valid, evidence-based skepticism can then get stretched, extrapolated into these all-encompassing, shadowy super-conspiracies, blaming every complex problem, every negative event on one single, all-powerful, malevolent group. The fact that real conspiracies have happened makes even the wildest, most baseless theories seem more plausible to some people.
So discovering real conspiratorial planning by governments basically opens the door. It makes the lead seem smaller. If they lied about that, what else are they lying about? It erodes the ability to tell truth from fiction.
Precisely. It creates fertile ground where the possibility of hidden agendas becomes the default assumption, not an exception you need strong evidence for. That cognitive leap from governments sometimes lie to the government always lies and everything is a conspiracy, it's a dangerous leap, but it's definitely enabled by these real breaches of trust.
Fascinating and a bit scary. Okay, let's bring this right into the present day. From ancient secrets whispered in dimly lit rooms to, digital orders forming in encrypted chats. How do these old historical threads show up and evolve in our hyper-connected world?
It's really remarkable how resilient these narratives are, isn't it? How they adapt. Take the Illuminati again. Historically defunct, absolutely not some single group pulling strings today, yet. It's a ubiquitous pop culture meme, probably more famous now than it ever was in the 1780s.
Oh, it's everywhere. Music videos, fashion, video games, those endless YouTube rabbit holes, TikTok trends. And then you have specific artists, Jay-Z, Beyonce, Kanye, Katy Perry, who get accused, sometimes jokingly, sometimes seriously, of being members because they use a triangle symbol or an eye in their videos or performances. How does pop culture, playing with these ideas, sometimes seriously, sometimes not, how does that perpetuate them or maybe trivialize them? Is it like modern myth-making?
It absolutely is a form of modern myth-making and cultural absorption. Pop culture takes these historically heavy, often dark ideas and makes them accessible, digestible, often humorous tropes. This playful engagement keeps the ideas alive, introduces them to new generations who might know nothing about Weishaupt or 18th century Bavaria. Now, does it trivialize the original serious conspiracy theories? Maybe. But it also shows this deep, underlying societal fascination with hidden power, secret knowledge. Even if it's not always taken literally, it's like the commercialization of conspiracy. It shows how embedded that archetype of the secret society is in our collective mind. It normalizes the concept, even while maybe stripping away some of the original sinister meaning, turning it into entertainment.
And some of these suspicions aren't just cultural jokes or memes. They persist as very real beliefs, genuine sources of concern in some parts of the world, right? Far away from ironic TikToks.
Profoundly true. Freemasonry, for example, still exists globally, operates openly in most places, yet it remains shrouded in suspicion in many regions. Particularly in the Middle East, Eastern Europe, you see it in media frequently. The reasons vary. In parts of the Middle East, historically, it got linked to Western secularism, sometimes colonialism, even Zionist plots, seen as a foreign influence undermining traditional values or religion.
And Eastern Europe.
Well, during and after the Soviet era, any kind of secret society was viewed with intense suspicion by authoritarian regimes, often accused of being anti-state, promoting Western influence, even espionage. That legacy of distrust lingers.
In JFK, we talked about it being a catalyst, but it's still so alive today, isn't it?
Right.
Still the most investigated murder in U.S. history. Countless books, documentaries, inquiries. Yet polls show, over 60% of Americans still believe there was some kind of conspiracy. Why? After all this time, all the investigation, why is it still such fertile ground? Why hasn't it just faded into history?
I think it's the lack of a universally accepted, entirely satisfying explanation for such a huge, traumatic event. It leaves this deep void in the national consciousness. The perceived flaws in the Warren Commission, those classified documents released drip by drip over decades, Oswald being killed so quickly, all these elements feed a narrative of deliberate confusion, an ongoing cover-up. It's like a wound that never fully healed for America. It keeps getting picked at, re-examined, reinterpreted. Every new tidbit, even if it contradicts older theories, just seems to reinforce the idea that the full truth is still out there, hidden. It speaks to this powerful, deep-seated desire for a coherent story to explain that national trauma. The official narrative just never managed to satisfy for most people.
Okay, and what about contemporary echoes? Where do we see these themes? Secret elites, hidden manipulation showing up today in real-time movements or beliefs?
Oh, they echo powerfully. You see them in modern, often decentralized movements that thrive online. Things like QAnon, various deep state narratives, many anti-globalist movements. They might not have the formal structure of the old Illuminati or Freemasons, with lodges and secret handshakes, but they tapped into those same fundamental human needs. Simple explanations for complex problems, a strong sense of in-group belonging, and having a clear enemy to rally against. But now, these needs find expression and amplification in digital networks, decentralized, fast-moving.
That's a key difference, isn't it? The internet and social media. How have they specifically accelerated the spread, the evolution of these narratives, made them more pervasive, maybe harder to counter, more impactful than ever before?
Oh, massively. The internet offers instant global reach. Narratives spread like wildfire, bypassing traditional gatekeepers, mainstream media, academic institutions, social media platforms with their algorithms. They create these incredibly effective echo chambers or filter bubbles. They push users down rabbit holes. You engage with one conspiracy post, the algorithm feeds you 10 more just like it.
Right, it curates your reality.
Exactly. It reinforces your worldviews, actively shutting out contradictory information. This allows for the rapid creation of these new, often loosely connected digital orders. Communities forming in encrypted chats, forums, private groups. These online spaces build shared belief, a strong sense of community, sometimes collective delusion, much faster and wider than ever before. It's a powerful engine for belief formation, letting totally unproven theories gain huge traction and have real-world consequences.
Okay, let's try to untangle some of this. It's easy to get lost. Let's look at some specific common myths that have sprung up around these groups and compare them to the actual truth, or at least alternative, more grounded theories. First, the big one, the overarching fear. The Illuminati secretly runs the world. Myth or truth?
That one. Definitively a myth. The original Bavarian Illuminati, Weishaupt's group, was officially shut down in 1785, less than 10 years after it started. Now, did its ideas, rationalism, anti-clericalism persist, influence later Enlightenment movements? Absolutely. But did it continue as one single, clandestine organization secretly controlling global events from some hidden bunker? No. The idea of a secret cabal pulling all the strings is way more dramatic than the historical reality. Might ideological descendants exist? Or similar philosophical groups and think tanks, exclusive clubs, intellectual circles? Sure, but that's a world away from a monolithic, all-powerful cult running the planet.
So the key distinction is between the actual organization, which died out, and the ideas, which maybe evolved and got picked up by others over time.
Exactly. The idea of a hidden, enlightened elite guiding society definitely had legs. But it wasn't the original group structure carrying it forward. The myth became way more powerful than the actual group ever was, especially after the French Revolution, when conservatives needed a scapegoat for all that upheaval.
Okay. Next one, Freemasons. That persistent myth that they worship the devil or engage in satanic rituals. Truth or myth?
Firmly a myth,
Yeah.
and one that's caused Freemasonry a massive amount of trouble and misunderstanding over centuries. The fraternity emphasizes deism, that's a belief in a supreme being, a great architect of the universe, but not tied to one specific religion's doctrine or deity. It's explicitly not Satanism. They don't require members to abandon their own faith either. This myth gets fueled largely by misinterpretations, often deliberate ones, of their esoteric writings and rituals, and especially by quotes taken way out of context or even misattributed to figures like Albert Pike.
Albert Pike, who was he?
He was a prominent American Mason in the 19th century, wrote a lot about Masonic philosophy and symbolism, very complex, dense stuff. His interpretations were his own, not universal Masonic doctrine, and they were easily twisted by people looking to paint the Masons in a sinister light.
It's incredible how easily misinterpretations, or just out-of-context quotes, can morph into these powerful engines of misinformation, right? Leading to such extreme beliefs, people seem drawn to the sensational.
They really do. When there's a knowledge gap, people often fill it with the most dramatic story available, especially if it fits pre-existing suspicions about secret groups or, hidden evils.
What about the Knights Templar finding and guarding the Holy Grail? Or other ancient, amazing treasures, another classic. Myth or truth?
That one's absolutely a myth, too. There is zero historical evidence for it. The Templars were warrior monks, yes, and powerful bankers. They weren't questing knights searching for mystical relics. This narrative is almost entirely a product of first 19th century Romanticism, which loved to romanticize medieval knights and chivalry, and more recently, hugely popular culture. Modern novels like Dan Brown's The Da Vinci Code and the movies based on them have massively popularized this idea. They've cemented the image of the Templars as guardians of profound secrets, blurring fiction and history for millions.
So popular fiction can have this huge, sometimes misleading impact on how people see history. They read a novel, watch a movie, and start thinking it's basically a documentary.
Unfortunately, yeah. Fiction is powerful, and when it weaves in real historical figures or events, it can easily blur those lines, especially if the story taps into our fascination with hidden knowledge or ancient mysteries.
Okay, finally, let's circle back to JFK. That pervasive theory that he wasn't killed by a lone gunman, but by the mafia or rogue elements in the CIA. Theory or truth?
This one's more complicated than a simple myth versus truth. Plausible links or motives, sure, they've been suggested. The mafia's alleged involvement in plots against Castro, internal CIA unhappiness with Kennedy's policies, these ideas exist. But have any been conclusively proven with hard evidence directly linking them to the assassination itself? No. However, and this is crucial, the House Select Committee on Assassinations, HSCA, back in 1979, they officially concluded there was a probable conspiracy.
Probable conspiracy coming from an official investigation.
Yes. They stated, based on acoustic evidence they reviewed, that there was a high probability that 2 gunmen fired at President John F. Kennedy, which implies a coordinated effort, something beyond just Oswald acting alone. But they couldn't say who the other gunman was or who might have been behind it.
Wow. That's a massive qualification, isn't it? For an official congressional body to say, probable conspiracy? What does that do to public trust? To the search for answers? It basically keeps the door wide open, suggesting the original story wasn't the full story.
It absolutely validates public suspicion, even without providing concrete answers. It confirms that the official story, as initially presented by the Warren Commission, was likely incomplete or inaccurate, and that feeds right back into the why and who questions. It ensures the mystery endures as this central pillar of American conspiracy culture. It lends official weight to the idea that there could have been hidden actors, even if we still don't know who they were.
Okay, so it's really important to distinguish between these pervasive theories, even officially acknowledged possibilities like in JFK, and actual documented instances of conspiratorial planning within powerful institutions. Because those exist too. Let's look at some real-life examples where powerful groups did act in secret, with questionable or downright illicit motives, because these often provide the fuel for the broader, less proven theories, right?
Absolutely. And a chilling, undeniable example is Operation Northwoods from 1962. This wasn't a theory someone cooked up. This is a proposed false flag operation, drafted by the U.S. Department of Defense, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The plan involved staging fake terror attacks on U.S. soil or against U.S. assets. Things like blowing up a remote-controlled boat near Cuba, maybe even faking a Cuban attack on a U.S. base like Guantanamo.
Wait, staging attacks on Americans. To justify what?
To justify a war with Cuba.
Well,
to create public and international support for invading Cuba and getting rid of Fidel Castro.
a government agency planning to attack its own people or fake attacks to start a war. That sounds almost unbelievable, but it's documented.
It's documented, declassified. Now, it was never carried out. President Kennedy rejected the plan. But the fact that it was seriously proposed, planned at the highest levels of the military, it proves how deeply conspiratorial planning can occur within governments. It's a critical example that validates a certain baseline skepticism about official stories. It shows the idea of powerful groups acting secretly for political aims isn't always fantasy. Sometimes it's a horrifying historical blueprint. Governments can and do engage in deception.
Wow, okay, another example. Maybe different in nature, but still involves secrecy and power. Bohemian Grove. This is a real place, right? An exclusive retreat in California.
That's right, Bohemian Grove, a real, very exclusive, all-male retreat in Northern California. Every summer, powerful figures gather there: politicians, business leaders, media owners, former presidents, CEOs, top media figures. And the intense secrecy surrounding it, combined with reports of bizarre rituals like the cremation of care ceremony.
Cremation of care, what's that?
It's the ceremony where they burn an effigy, supposedly representing worldly cares and woes, at the foot of this giant 40-foot owl statue. It sounds strange, and it naturally breeds suspicion. Now, attendees usually describe it as just a summer camp for powerful guys, a chance to relax, network, let off steam away from the public eye. But the extreme privacy, the weird customs, it definitely sparks the public imagination.
Well, yeah. If you have world leaders, titans of industry, gathering in secret, in the woods, doing strange rituals under a giant owl, it's not a huge leap for people to think they're discussing more than just, golf handicaps or company picnics. It really highlights the difference between just a private gathering and the kind of extreme secrecy, especially among the super powerful, that just fuels speculation and conspiracy theories. The lack of transparency invites it.
Precisely. Even if the intentions are totally benign, just networking and relaxing, that lack of transparency creates a vacuum. And the human mind rushes to fill that vacuum with grander, often more sinister, narratives. When the powerful meet in secret, public trust is almost inevitably strained. Theories of secret deals and hidden agendas can easily take root.
And then there's the Skull and Bones Society at Yale, another real, very exclusive secret society, steeped in mystery.
Yes, Skull and Bones, founded at Yale back in 1832, notoriously exclusive. Only 15 senior students tapped each year. And its alumni list, it's packed with powerful figures. U.S. presidents, both George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush, William Howard Taft before them, CIA directors, Supreme Court justices, captains of industry. These members are called bonesmen. The rituals are highly secret. They meet in this windowless building on campus called the Tomb, and the fact that so many alumni reach these pinnacles of power, it directly feeds speculation about this powerful, hidden network operating behind the scenes in American life.
It seems like a perfect recipe for conspiracy theories, doesn't it? Alumni reaching the absolute top.
Yeah.
How does the existence of these closed-door networks, even if they claim to be harmless, get interpreted as proof of a deep state or some controlling elite?
Well, when you see individuals from these very specific, very exclusive groups consistently rising to the highest levels, government, finance, intelligence, it's just easy for people to connect those dots, to assume membership implies a shared agenda, a secret network of influence, an allegiance that goes beyond their public duty, even if the society's real purpose is just networking, tradition, intellectual debate, whatever. The perception of this influential, secret inner circle becomes powerful evidence for anyone looking for proof of a deep state or a hidden elite pulling the strings. It taps right into that primal fear that someone else, behind closed doors, is making the decisions that affect everyone.
Okay, so we've traced the history, dug into the psychology, looked at modern examples. But how do these ideas travel? How do they look different around the world? Do secret societies and conspiracy theories mean the same thing everywhere? Or do different cultures view them through their own unique lenses?
Oh, not at all the same everywhere. There are definitely distinct cultural variations. They reflect local histories, political realities, dominant worldviews. Take the USA, for instance. We've touched on this. Conspiracy theories are deeply embedded in pop culture, yes, but also often tied to core American narratives. Individual freedom versus government control, fear of hidden agendas undermining liberty.
That makes total sense. American history, the Revolution, the Bill of Rights, emphasis on individual liberty, a long tradition of skepticism towards powerful institutions, Watergate, Vietnam.
Yeah.
It creates really fertile ground for anti-establishment stories. Fear of government overreach is practically baked in. That fuels theories about everything from the moon landing to 9/11 to government mind control.
Exactly. Now shift to the Middle East. There, conspiracy theories often get framed very differently. frequently as anti-Islamic plots or Zionist conspiracies, deeply connected to geopolitical tensions, historical grievances from colonialism or conflict, and sometimes religious interpretations. That notorious anti-Semitic hoax, the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, still circulates widely in some parts of the region, unfortunately. Used to portray this idea of a global Jewish conspiracy.
So it's often about perceived external manipulation,
Yeah.
shaped by historical conflicts, foreign interventions, and specific religious viewpoints. How do regional conflicts feed into this?
Precisely. The history of conflict, foreign intervention, the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian situation, they all fuel narratives of powerful, hidden foreign hands orchestrating events, trying to destabilize the region, undermine Islamic societies, control resources. You hear theories about foreign intelligence agencies secretly backing extremist groups to divide and conquer, for example.
And Europe, how does it look there?
European views often seem filtered through a more historical, critical lens, especially after the experiences of the 20th century, fascism, totalitarianism, the massive betrayals of trust during the World Wars. While Europe certainly has its own popular conspiracies, there's often a slightly more cautious, maybe more academic approach sometimes. For example, Operation Gladio, that real Cold War, NATO, stay-behind, network-fueled theories about secret armies manipulating European politics for decades. You also hear theories about the European Union itself being a kind of conspiracy to undermine national sovereignty.
So Europe's history marked by those devastating wars, powerful political ideologies, maybe a deeper understanding of propaganda shakes a different approach. Maybe more focus on systemic control, institutional conspiracies, rather than just shadowy individuals?
I think that's often true, yeah. There's perhaps a heightened awareness of how easily populations can be misled by big ideologically driven movements. So the focus might shift towards institutional biases, powerful lobbies, systemic issues, rather than purely secret cabals and smoke-filled rooms, though those exist too, of course.
What about Africa? How do these ideas manifest there?
In Africa, it's fascinating. Views on secret societies and conspiracies often blend with local myths, traditional belief systems, sometimes framed as spiritual warfare or linked to fears of neo-colonial influence. For example, accusations of witchcraft or using juju sometimes get tangled up in political power struggles. Opponents might be accused of using dark magic to gain advantage. You also find prevalent theories that foreign aid organizations or multinational corporations are secretly pushing neo-colonial agendas or exploiting resources under the guise of helping.
So it's this unique mix, traditional beliefs about unseen forces intersecting with very real, modern anxieties about economic exploitation or political interference from outside.
That's a great way to put it. Traditional spiritual frameworks can provide a way to understand unseen influences, and that intersects with valid modern concerns about external economic or political manipulation.
And finally, South Asia.
There, conspiracy theories often seem entwined with the legacy of colonialism, the colonial hangover. Also, the trauma of partition, ongoing regional rivalries, and anxieties about global power shifts. They frequently focus on external manipulation by former colonial powers, by rival nations like India and Pakistan accusing each other, or by new global players like China or the US, seen as trying to destabilize the region or control its resources. Theories about foreign intelligence agencies stirring up internal conflicts or rigging elections are pretty common. Narratives about global powers vying for control over strategic locations or resources.
So the long shadow of colonialism, combined with current geopolitical tensions, shapes these beliefs. A strong sense of being potentially manipulated from outside, a struggle for genuine sovereignty.
Yes, absolutely. A deep-seated suspicion of external powers trying to exert control, which is born from centuries of historical experience with foreign rule and intense geopolitical maneuvering. It's a recurring theme you see across many post-colonial regions.
Wow. This has been an incredible journey. Through hidden histories, the twists of the human mind, these diverse global views, let's try to bring it all together now.
Yeah.
We've seen the incredible power of these narratives, whether they're based in fact or pure fiction. But what's the final takeaway? What are the real strengths and the real weaknesses of thinking this way, this double-edged sword of conspiracy culture? How do we separate the useful signal from the dangerous noise?
Right, the critical analysis part. On the strength side, engaging with these topics, even the wilder ones, it does encourage critical inquiry, doesn't it? It pushes people to question official narratives, question established power, question accepted truths. And that questioning is vital for a healthy democracy.
And crucially, sometimes that questioning has led to uncovering real wrongdoing. We talked about Operation Northwoods, Watergate, and Cultra. These are actual conspiracies, secret illicit plans that came to light, partly because people didn't just accept the official story. Persistent questioning, investigation.
Exactly. It shows that a healthy skepticism about authority isn't just okay, it's vital. And sometimes the fear of being exposed, the fear that someone is watching and questioning, can actually deter bad behavior by those in power. It acts as this informal but potent check. And sometimes all the popular interest in these hidden histories, even if fueled by wild theories, can spark legitimate academic work. Historians, researchers digging deeper into archives, uncovering things previously unknown. So skepticism, when it's rigorous, evidence-based, committed to facts, it absolutely can be a force for good.
Yeah. There's a huge dark side, really dangerous edge to unchecked conspiratorial thinking that can chew away at the foundations of society. What are the weaknesses, the dangers we absolutely need to keep in mind?
Yeah, the dangers are significant. The primary one, it fosters pervasive paranoia, deep-seated distrust, extreme societal polarization. It can lead to this all-encompassing suspicion where social cohesion just erodes. Trust in essential institutions, science, reliable media, education, government itself just evaporates. If everything is a conspiracy, then nothing can be trusted. Finding common ground becomes almost impossible.
And that leads straight to radicalization, right? Pushing people down these online rabbit holes into increasingly extreme beliefs. Rejecting expert knowledge, scientific consensus. We see it with climate change denial, anti-vaccine movement.
Precisely, and it can completely derail serious political discussion. By focusing everyone's attention on unsubstantiated theories, imaginary enemies, it distracts from the actual urgent societal problems and policy debates that need reasoned argument and evidence-based solutions. And perhaps the most frightening part, as we've seen happen in the real world, believing false narratives can incite dangerous actions. It can lead to violence, civil unrest, threats against public officials or specific groups. Real harm.
And ultimately, it kind of discredits legitimate dissent too, doesn't it? If you lump reasoned skepticism, genuine critiques of power, in with totally outlandish fantasies, it makes it harder for anyone to hold power accountable. Any questioning risks being dismissed as, oh, just another conspiracy theory.
Absolutely. When conspiracy theory becomes a weaponized label to shut down any critique, it creates this chilling effect on legitimate questioning. On the critical thought, a democracy needs to function, to self-correct. It makes it harder to address the real problems, the real cover-ups when they happen.
So, okay, regardless of whether secret societies really run the world or if every major event is secretly orchestrated, their stories, our fascination with them, they act like powerful cultural mirrors, don't they?
They really do.
Okay.
They connect directly to our deepest human impulses, our fears of chaos, of powerlessness, our desires for order, for control, our fundamental need to find meaning in a world that often feels fragmented, chaotic, random. These narratives offer a kind of comfort, even if it's an unsettling comfort, an explanation for what might otherwise feel completely senseless, totally out of our hands. They help us make sense of the seemingly senseless.
And it's so important to remember, the stories we tell about these hidden threads, they profoundly shape our society. They influence how we vote, who we trust or distrust, our very perception of reality. They dictate who we see as us and who gets labeled them.
And this isn't going anywhere. The future of conspiracy culture, it's evolving, definitely not disappearing. Especially now, with these new digital orders forming online in encrypted chats, decentralized communities. And think about the potential for advanced AI to generate new, incredibly sophisticated, highly personalized misinformation narratives, blurring the lines between reality and fabrication in ways we can barely imagine yet. It's a landscape that demands more vigilance, more critical thinking than ever before.
It is a lot to think about, a constant challenge to discern, to understand. So for you, our listener, maybe we can leave you with this profound question drawn from our sources today. The question isn't just who's in control anymore. Maybe the deeper question is, why do we need to believe someone is?
Think about that. What does that fundamental human need for control, for a hidden hand, tell us about our own anxieties, about our place in this incredibly complex, often unpredictable world?
Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep diving deep.